Good to get that out the way, right? Week 1, you can go to work and start your week off with a win in Vikings land. That was an excellent performance by the Minnesota Vikings. Mediokr Best Sports Podcast with Realistic Randy. Thanks for tuning in. There's a lot of great things to talk about, very few things that I'll nitpick at. So we'll just start with that. The Minnesota Vikings, they beat the San Francisco 49ers 24-16 at US Bank Stadium. They held Jimmy Garoppolo to 15 of 33 completions, so that's under 50% completion percentage. So great job to the defense. And I want to start there. The defense was absolutely outstanding. They were incredible yesterday. And here's the thing, a little backstory. I was up in Sacramento area with my best friend up there, and she's a Niners fan. And we were up there at a Niners bar watching the game. Now, I'm not a guy that goes out and wears jerseys to bars. That's just not my thing, unless I'm in Minnesota. But really, even if I'm in Minnesota, I won't really do it. The number one reason why is because if I'm at a bar, people get drunk. I don't want beer or liquor or hot wing sauce being spilt on my jerseys. Those are some expensive pieces of clothing to wear. And then if you're in enemy territory, it's really not good to wear it because, again, people get drunk and they get – I was out there at that Niners bar, and these dudes were out here just drunk as all hell saying, get his ass, whenever Dalvin Cook had the ball, get his ass, F him, blah, blah, blah. And every time when the Vikings would do something good, me and a buddy of mine would just fist bump, So anyway, I was out there watching the game. It was some really good stuff to key in on. Number one, the defense, like I said, they were phenomenal yesterday. Couple of shout-outs I want to give to Andrew Sendejo. He looked like he's picking up where he left off last year. He's showing that last year was no fluke because last year was his pop-out year. That was his breakout season. That was his best season by far, and he came in just giving vicious hits. He broke up a play with Eric Kendricks on a long third down attempt by Jimmy Garoppolo early in the first half to basically force the Niners to punt. And then Trey Waynes, so he had an injury he had to deal with, but here's the thing, this dude got heart. For everyone that loves to just say Trey Waynes, he's replaceable, he's no big deal, and I get that we have Mike Hughes. I'll talk about that in just a second, and it was great to see Mike Hughes come out. All you Mike Hughes stands, when he went to go do his pick six, congrats to him. I never criticized Mike Hughes as a player. I just criticized the timing of the pick, and more so I criticized what they did after they picked. Or what they didn't do after they picked Mike Hughes. But Trey Waynes, for everyone that says, Trey Waynes, he's no big deal, blah, 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 blah. Guess what? For as goofy as he can be, and early on, what was his issue? He'd get in position, but he'd never get his head around, or he mistime his jumps. Think about that play that he broke up in the end zone. It was a deep pass. It was basically him one-on-one for the most part. And then Jimmy Garoppolo threw a deep pass to him. It was like a inside post, if you will. To what was the dude's name? This was Dante Pettis. He got beat on that play, Trey Waynes did. And what happened? He stretched his arms out as the ball was coming into Dante Pettis' hands. It looked like Pettis had the catch for the touchdown, but he kept his arm in position the whole play through the entire play and broke that play up in the end zone. That's what Trey Waynes does. He got beat on a couple of slant patterns, but he was able to keep his head in the game because he's going to get targeted. He's an easy punching bag for these quarterbacks to go after because Xavier Rhodes is on the opposite side. Think about Trey Waynes and that play that he broke up for everyone that's just like, oh, Trey Waynes, he's no big deal. And then not only that, the goal line stand. That was a hell of a goal line stand. I cussed on Twitter for the first time that I can remember. I was like, that's an effing goal line stand right there. F yeah. Because if you think about it, this was the possession the Niners had after Dalvin Cook fumbled the ball away. So after he fumbled the ball, and I'm not even going to get on Dalvin Cook for that. It's his second year. And to be honest, after he broke off for like that 15-yard run and he was breaking tackles left and right, at that point, by the time he last got hit, he was thinking to himself, and I wouldn't blame him for this, that he was scot-free. After this dude, after he would assume or presumably break that last tackle, he would get a touchdown or more yards. So I'm not even going to blame him for that. But after that fumble that Dalvin Cook had, the defense had to come back out on the field. The Niners got the ball. They marched the field. They marched up the field with the ball up to the goal line. And the defense, they stood pat. The tension in that bar was starting to get a little bit hot because, the Niners, they hadn't scored in a while. It's like, all right, this is the chance to make a statement right here. And my buddy, she was like, oh, this is it. We're going to score. We're so close. And I said right before that fumble, I said, hey, You may score, but don't just act like it's going to happen. If you're going to score on this defense, you're going to earn it. You're going to have to earn it. They're not going to be just some team that's just going to let, we're at the goal line, it is what it is, or whatever. Or even if it was the Seattle Seahawks going at the 1 yard line, throwing the ball instead of passing it, you're going to have to earn this touchdown. You're going to have to earn this score. And right after that, they fumbled the ball, turned the ball over. It was Vikings ball. It was a beautiful thing to watch. That defense was outstanding. There were so many times that the Niners were threatening to score, and the Vikings said, F that, dude. We're going to stop this. Shout out to them for doing that. Harrison Smith proved why he's going to be a first-ballot Hall of Famer. He ended the game on an interception. This dude is just everywhere, man. I think him and Andrew Sendejo, they are a perfect safety combination. We'll see what they do with George Iloka within the year as far as mix them up in some sub packages or maybe even keep them next year, assuming that you're unable to retain Andrew Sendejo. But I thought the defensive unit was incredible throughout the entire game. And that defensive line, shout out to them. Daniil Hunter, he looks like he's ready to take his second year as a full-time starter up another notch, which he has no choice to because last year wasn't really all that great. He was okay, but he wasn't as good as he was when he was coming off the bench, filling in for Brian Robeson a couple of times and getting sacks. Now he's starting his year off on a good foot. He was fantastic yesterday. And think about Sheldon Richardson. The last memory I have on him on the field as a Viking was in the preseason game against the Seattle Seahawks, and he didn't look great at all. The Seahawks game plan for him, he really got pushed around for the most part. And in this game, he showed out, man. There was one play where Sheldon Richardson got pressure, or maybe a hit even. I know he got pressure on Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe even a hit. And then it was just think if you're watching a box score, if you're just watching the game cast, you're not able to see the game. You're not able to see the game itself. You just see words pop up, and it's like, oh, Sheldon Richardson with the pressure, finished by Everson Griffin. How does that sound? That is ridiculous. That sounds like a video game. But that defensive line was on point, and Everson Griffin had a sack. And I was thinking to myself, hey, he's going against Joe Staley. He might struggle a little bit. Everybody on the defensive line was great. That defense as a whole, I've got nothing to pick up. And hey, Mike Hughes with the pick six. Actually, the only thing that I will criticize on the defense is really small. There was a possession that the Niners had, and there was like 3 or 4 plays in a row where they were hitting wide open dudes in the flat. I was like, come on, adjust to that. That was the only thing where I'm like, come on, what are you doing right now? How are they so wide open? And then there was another play where I believe the guy, number 85 of the Niners, his name is, Kittles, I believe. He dropped a wide open, what would have been a touchdown pass. I think he had Eric Kendricks beat on that play, but he had it right there, and he dropped it. And I was like, good thing they dropped that. But I thought overall the defense did a really good job. So now, moving on to the offense. Get that out of there. Moving on to the offense. Okay, so I thought the O-line to start the game was pretty problematic. I thought that they struggled early on. If there was, I get that preseason is gone, but they're picking up where they left off as far as Kirk Cousins. He's not Case Keenum, all right? He can kind of move a little bit as far as to avoid hits left and right a little bit, but as far as getting your feet out on time like Case Keenum, he's not that same guy. And even when he rolled outside the pocket a couple of times, it was painful to watch because defensive linemen can easily catch up with him. He doesn't have the feet that Case Keenum has. He needs a clean pocket of protection to be able to make throws down the field. Now, I thought starting off, they were horrible, mostly because of Tom Compton. He was a disaster, as I thought he would be. He either gave up a sack or a huge TFL in one possession, which killed it because the Vikings were moving the ball up the field, and Tom Compton single-handedly killed that possession. They were forced to punt, and then later on, I think he had a false starter or a holding. He had something stupid. Look, I was never worried about the Niners defense, but I, honest to God, think the better defenses you're starting to go against, you got the Rams and the Eagles coming up in a couple of weeks, Green Bay, their defense is whatever. They're really not that good. I think the better competition that comes along, Tom Compton's going to get exposed. You really, really hope, if you're a Vikings fan, that Pat Elflein is going to be ready for week 2. We'll go ahead and monitor that. But besides that, I thought after the first couple of possessions, as the game went on, I thought the offensive line was actually okay. I thought they were. The run blocking was good. I thought the pass protection was pretty decent. I wasn't sitting there saying, oh, get rid of the ball quick. And here's the thing that I love about the offense, about yesterday. I've always said this offense has a chance to be explosive as a defense. They weren't really explosive, and you could cater that to, okay, it's week 1. They're still trying to figure everything out. They're playing a full game together for the first time instead of just a quarter here or a couple of possessions here in the preseason. I thought the offense looked really, really good. I thought Adam Thielen would take a back seat to Stephon Diggs this year. Well, yesterday that was not the case. Adam Thielen was Kirk Cousins' main guy yesterday. I thought they should have targeted Stephon Diggs because, and look, I said this last week. I said I would target Richard Sherman with Stephon Diggs, put him on his side every single time. Even if he tries to shy away, put Stephon Diggs in the vicinity of Richard Sherman because he's a zone corner. Who knows, maybe he'll end up guarding him. And the one play that they threw to Stephon Diggs where Richard Sherman was on him, he put the break moves on him. Richard Sherman was like 5 yards behind him. He's not able to keep up. He made an easy catch, and that was it. I thought they should have done that more. John DeFilippo, bro, you should have did that more. He had a couple of catches for, 50 yards, Stephon Diggs. And and that pass that Kirk Cousins threw in the end zone to Stephon Diggs, that was worth the price of admission right there. That was a beautiful, perfectly thrown ball that I don't know if Case Keenum would have made. Think about when Sam Bradford first stepped onto the scene. But this was after Teddy Bridgewater. We love Teddy Bridgewater. He got hurt, and we were looking forward to what he would do. Same thing saying, if we kept Case Keenum, how would this offense look? I wonder how. Look, that throw that Kirk Cousins made was worth the price of admission. Same thing we said about Sam Bradford. It was like, we never saw Teddy making any throws like that. That was a dime pass by Kirk Cousins. I thought they should have went after Richard Sherman more, and they didn't. The only other time that I remember they went after Richard Sherman is when Laquan Treadwell was on his side. When Richard Sherman was lined up on Laquan Treadwell, and Sherman just made him look like an idiot. He broke the pass up. I don't know why Kirk Cousins would even know. You should even scan the field. I know Richard Sherman isn't the same guy as he was. He's a little bit slower now. He's a zone corner. But that's perfect for a guy. I say, look, he's better suited going against bigger physical receivers than the shifty guys like a Stephon Diggs. Well, the bigger physical receivers are guys like Laquan Treadwell, and he's not even as talented as a Brandon Marshall who's past his prime. He's not even that talented, and so he got made silly. I don't know why they didn't go after Richard Sherman a little bit more. But Adam Thielen, he stepped up big. And the thing that I love that I keep forgetting every single time until this dude steps on the field, and there's no disrespect, is Dalvin Cook. He is a huge difference maker. Forget the fact that he fumbled the ball. He's a huge difference maker. Think about how many times where you're like, Kirk Cousins, he's going to throw a nice slant route or a nice in-and-out route to Diggs or Thielen or maybe even Rudolph. What's going to happen? I don't know. Oh, my God, if you're a defense, you got to worry about that. Hand it off Dalvin Cook, 7 yards here, 10 yards here, 12 yards here, 5 yards here, moving the chains, throw a screen to him. It's 15 yards. It's almost like in basketball when you're going up against an opponent and you're thinking to themselves, oh my God, they're gonna just like the Warriors. They're gonna throw all these threes up in the air. I can't stop. You gotta worry about that. And then all of a sudden they're hitting free throws. It slows the game down and keeps you guessing more. Like, oh man, you're a little bit antsy. Let's get back into it. Oh my God, free throws, layup. Draymond Green. Sort of like that. Dalvin Cook is that tone setter where it's like he brings the whole defense back to earth. And it's like, oh, snap. We can't just sit here and worry about these wide receivers. We got to worry about this dude who they can hand the ball off to, and he can break tackles. Like, this dude's a physical north and south runner. He can line him up maybe in the slot a couple of times, roll him out on some screen passes like Le'Veon Bell. This dude is a difference maker, and he was that guy. I was a little bit surprised at the workload that he got in game one. I thought it was going to be a little bit more of a timeshare battle, but Dalvin Cook was fantastic yesterday. The only other thing, I thought the play calling was a little bit sketchy at times, especially to close out the first half. They were super conservative. Now, I called, not Mackie and Judd, I called Vikings Vent Line, and I said, I don't remember a time where last year I said, Pat Shurmur, what are you doing? This is a little bit questionable as far as play calling. He was pretty much terrific throughout the season, except I believe in the Falcons game, I was a little bit critical of a little bit of conservative play calling. And the argument I would probably give for Pat Shurmur is because, Mike Zimmer, he was never really fully confident in Case Keenum. Neither was I, for that matter. I thought based on if you kept him at where his talents are, that's great. If you try to make him do more than what he's capable of, I thought you would be setting yourself up for disaster with that. But they never trusted Case Keenum to the fullest. So I could kind of understand that. With this, you got Kirk Cousins. There's no excuse. He's the $84 million guaranteed man. let this dude go after it. I don't want to see no more conservative play calling. That's not what you need, especially like the end of the first half where you throw a screen off, I believe, to Dalvin Cook. You throw a dump off pass, and you basically you punt the whole possession away. You're like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? You've got a quarterback now that you believe is going to take, if you're talking about being a Super Bowl contending team, you shouldn't be seeing that. I know it's week 1, but damn it, we shouldn't see that anymore because you're basically playing not to lose instead of playing to win the game. And actually, the last thing that I'll touch on real quick, actually, no, a couple of things. Daniil Carlson, low-key, shout out to him. I've been very critical of him, unlike Mike Hughes, where people's like, oh, you criticize Mike Hughes. One guy on Facebook said, you owe him an apology. No, I don't owe Mike Hughes an apology. I never criticized Mike Hughes as a player at one time. Find me footage where I've ever done that. My thing is, you should have drafted a guard, maybe a Will Hernandez, or even if you take Mike Hughes, because this is the key, I've always said this, even if you're going to take Mike Hughes, you could trade up in day 2, trade up in the second round, go after a Will Hernandez or a Braden Smith. That's all I've ever said. But Mike Hughes, I've always expected him to be a good player. My thing is you need to protect Kirk Cousins. Mike Hughes, he had a good game. Daniil Carlson, that's a guy that I've criticized. That's a guy where I'm like, you know what? I need to see this dude because I'm worried about this dude's performance. Daniil Carlson, low-key, shout out to him. He was fantastic. He was flawless. He had a perfect game yesterday, made all of his extra points and all of his field goal attempts. Now, the other thing that I want to touch on as far as a low-key, not even low-key, the MVP of yesterday's game against the Niners was Riley Reiff. It was Riley Reiff. I believe this was the second to last possession that the Vikings had, basically closing out the game before the Niners got the ball one more time. And Riley, it was 4th down. It was 4th and 1. And I was saying to myself, I was like, oh, yeah, go for it, go for it, go for it. And then it was pretty much apparent they weren't going to go for it. They were just going to try to draw a flag and let the clock draw down. They probably would have even taken a delay of game penalty, before putting the ball away. And all of a sudden, this dude on the Niners, I guess Kirk Cousins, he does a hard count. This dude on the Niners, I don't even know his name. Excuse me, my throat is a little bit scratchy. But he came off the line of scrimmage, did a neutral zone infraction. Now, here's the thing. If any of the offensive linemen are still standing in position, I believe the refs will let that go unless you cause the offensive lineman to flinch. Then all of a sudden, they'll throw the flag out. Now, he didn't go off sides, but he lined up in the neutral zone, and Riley Reiff reacted instantly like, oh, my God. And I think he knew they weren't going to snap that ball at all, but he said, oh, my God, oh, my God. They threw the flag, and that extended the time. They wasted another minute off the clock. That was with like 2:54 left in regulation, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in the fourth quarter. And you drained out another minute before punting the ball away. That was an MVP move right there. Shout out to Riley Reiff. Now, the only other thing that's left is next week's game against the Green Bay Packers. On this week's episode of Skull Weekly, I do a podcast with SK Sean Kenner of the Skull Report. We do a joint podcast, and I'll probably break that game down a little bit further as that podcast comes up. But one thing I'll say, Aaron Rodgers, I can't stand the Packers. I can't stand Aaron Rodgers. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks I've ever seen. But that comeback yesterday, I was furious. I was so mad because I'm like, damn it, you're down, 20-3 or 20-0, and they came back, and Green Bay had the magic happen for them again. It must be nice. Congratulations to you all. Now, one thing I did see when Aaron Rodgers went out, when he got tackled, and I was thinking to myself, it looked like he was going, hey, you know what? Monitor those injury reports. Look, in the game, he may have had adrenaline or some sort of shot to keep him back in the game, whatever. I would imagine he's feeling a little bit gimpy right now, okay? So who knows if he's going to be available. He wasn't the same. He was kind of hobbling around on that knee. But I was saying to myself, after he got put out and Deshaun Kaiser went out there for a couple of series, I was like, are they going to change the rules now? Is the NFL Rules Committee going to change the rules now to where they set weight limits for defensive players? If you weigh over 250 pounds as a defensive player, you're not allowed to play football again. Why? Because if you land on Aaron Rodgers, then he'll be out for a couple of possessions. This game is soft, but good for Aaron Rodgers for stepping up. That was an incredible performance to come back. I'm a little bit upset, not even a little bit. I'm really, really upset that they were able to come back. But that Chicago Bears team is no joke. I was a little bit iffy about Mitch Trubisky. I thought once the game got tight, he reverted a little bit into the Tavares Jacksons, maybe the Christian Ponders even a little bit. Trevor Siemian, if you will, where it's like, But starting off in the game, I thought he was really, really good. But Khalil Mack is a beast. I'm mad we got to go up against this dude twice a year. But This was a lot of fun. I'm glad the football's back on. I love reacting to these games and previewing the games. As far as my quick preview against Green Bay, I don't care. Minnesota Vikings should win. Not saying that because I'm a homer. I don't care. Look, you're going to need more than just one man to overcome a Mike Zimmer defense. Now, I know the playoffs was a little bit different. Drew Brees, the second half of the divisional round, he kicked our asses. And the Eagles, in the entire game, they kicked our asses in the NFC Championship game. But this is the regular season, damn it. And I'm sure Mike Zimmer has learned this lesson, damn it. Now, over the past couple of years since Mike Zimmer has been here, Aaron Rodgers is a struggle against Mike Zimmer defenses. And I don't want to hear about the end of the season, 2016, where they kicked our asses. That team was checked out ever since the Colts game of that year. But I think they'll win. I think it'll be a tough game. Jimmy Graham, I think he's going to have a really, really good year. They're going to have to watch out for him. Eric Kendricks is going to be assigned to him. Maybe Harrison Smith a couple of times, because the Patriots a couple of years ago when they had Aqib Talib, they went against the New Orleans Saints in Foxborough. I remember in that game, they lined up Aqib Talib up against Jimmy Graham that entire game, and he shut Jimmy Graham down. You're not going to necessarily do that with Xavier Rhodes because they've got Devontae Adams. You can't leave him wide open. I love Trey Waynes, but you don't want Trey Waynes on Devontae Adams for an entire game. So you might have Andrew Sandeo helping out, Harrison Smith helping out. I want to see what they do, but you're going to have to shut him down. Should be a good game. Those corners they got in Green Bay are really good. They're really, really good. What's his name? Jari Alexander, and the other guy is, Josh Jackson. Those are some really good cornerbacks they got. So I'll be interested to see how they do. But damn it, we got Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, best wide receiver tandem in the league. I think this will be a good win. We'll break down more in the Skull Weekly, this podcast. But we do this once a week. Mediokr, best sports podcast. I had a great time watching the game. Follow me, YouTube, iTunes, search Twitter @realistic_Randy. We will see you next week.